We have a lot of people victimizing people that they at one point purported to love. You talk about intimate partner violence, we're seeing a slight uptick, but the level of violence is up, right? Where it's going from assaults to fatality.
It's crazy. I feel like these men is not thinking about the life that they're leaving behind. They're not thinking about their children when they take their mother.
A desperate voice on a 911 call. A woman is being chased and shot at. The words hang in the air as police rush to the scene. Less than 2 hours later, a divorce hearing was scheduled to begin, a hearing that would never take place. The sounds of gunshots still echo as officers arrive. Too late, a life cut short at the very moment freedom seemed within reach. Welcome to True Crime Case Tapes, where we examine not just the crimes that make headlines, but the lives forever altered by them. If you're new here, consider subscribing to join our community dedicated to respectful, thorough examinations of cases that matter. Today's episode requires us to look unflinchingly at domestic violence and its deadly consequences. Andria Sims McIntosh was 35 years old when her life ended on August 4, 2023. But to understand what happened that morning in Detroit, we must first know who Andria was beyond the headlines. She was a very caring person. She was lovable. She was open, very open, and very giving. Her daughter Sania McIntosh would later tell reporters, "These weren't empty words spoken in grief. They were a testament to a woman whose presence radiated warmth." Andria was a mother to 7 children, each representing a unique branch of her legacy. Her sister, Canish Williams, remembered her as someone whose heart was everything. 1 year younger than Williams, Andria had built her life on a foundation of strength and resilience. "She just didn't deserve this," Williams said. "She was a good-hearted person. She loved everybody." Family time for the McIntosh clan often meant water and sunshine. Swimming at Metro Beach was a favorite activity, those ordinary moments of joy that families often take for granted until they're gone. We can imagine Andria there, surrounded by her children, finding peace in the simple pleasure of a summer day. What makes Andria's story particularly notable is her professional background. She was a former sheriff's deputy and police officer, someone who had dedicated part of her life to protecting others, to upholding the law. She understood danger. She recognized threats. And yet, like so many others, she became vulnerable to the very violence she had once sworn to prevent. Beneath her radiant smile lay a struggle many women endure silently. A marriage deteriorating, a relationship that had turned bitter, a situation she was actively working to escape. For those who don't know, our channel focuses on these human elements, the lives behind the statistics. If you value this approach, please consider subscribing and joining our community of viewers who believe every story deserves to be told with dignity. Andria was in the process of divorce. Court documents describe the proceedings as very bitter. And on August 4, 2023, she was less than 2 hours away from a hearing that might have finally granted her freedom. She never made it to court. The morning of August 4, 2023, found Andria McIntosh preparing for what should have been a pivotal moment in her journey forward. A divorce hearing scheduled for later that morning represented the culmination of her efforts to legally separate from her estranged husband, Breon McIntosh, also 35 years old. The 6,000 block of Gunston Street on Detroit's east side was bustling with the usual morning activity. A construction site provided the backdrop for what would soon become a crime scene. The neighborhood, waking to the rhythm of another summer day, had no indication of the violence about to unfold. At approximately 7:53 a.m., the first call came in. The voice on the 911 recording was Andria's own, alerting authorities that a woman was being chased and shot at. Her call, made in desperation, would be among her final acts. Police were dispatched immediately. As they approached the location, they could hear gunshots. The situation was still active, still deadly. Their response time was described as record fast, but even the swiftest reaction couldn't outpace bullets already fired. What began as a verbal confrontation between Andria and Breon had rapidly escalated. Words turned to threats, threats turned to violence. And in those crucial moments, Breon allegedly produced a handgun. We know from prosecutor statements that multiple shots were fired. We know that Andria, despite her training and awareness, despite her desperate call for help, despite her proximity to the freedom she sought, couldn't escape the gunfire that followed her down the street. When officers arrived at the scene, they found Andria lying unresponsive in the roadway. Standing nearby was Breon McIntosh, the handgun still in his possession. Officers ordered him to drop the weapon, a command he obeyed, leading to his immediate apprehension. But for Andria, it was too late. Medical personnel arriving shortly after pronounced her deceased at the scene. The timing of this attack carries profound significance that cannot be overlooked. Less than 2 hours later, Andria was scheduled to appear in court for her divorce hearing. After navigating what court records described as a very bitter divorce proceeding, she was moments away from a legal resolution. Freedom was within her grasp. This timing aligns with what experts in domestic violence have long observed and what Wayne County Prosecutor Kim Worthy would later emphasize. The most dangerous time in the life of a domestic violence victim is when they are trying to leave the relationship. This statement is not merely prosecutorial rhetoric. It's a documented reality that plays out with devastating frequency across all demographics. Andria's professional background as a former law enforcement officer underscores this truth with painful clarity. Even those trained to recognize and respond to violence can become its victims. As news of the shooting spread, neighbors gathered behind the yellow police tape. Construction workers who had witnessed parts of the incident gave statements, and Andria's family received the call that would forever alter their lives. The news that their daughter, sister, and mother would not be coming home. The tragedy that unfolded that August morning would soon become a statistic cited by the Wayne County prosecutor, the 8th domestic violence homicide in the county that year. But to those who loved Andria, it was an incomprehensible loss, a void that statistics could never adequately capture. Before we continue with how the investigation unfolded, we want to remind our viewers that stories like Andria's matter. They reveal truths about domestic violence that must be confronted. If you find value in our approach to these difficult subjects, please consider supporting our channel by liking this video and subscribing. Your engagement helps us continue shedding light on cases that deserve attention. The investigation into Andria McIntosh's death presented authorities with an unusual circumstance in homicide cases. The alleged perpetrator was apprehended at the scene, weapon still in hand. This immediate capture meant that the focus quickly shifted from identifying a suspect to building a case and understanding the dynamics that led to such violence. As investigators processed the scene on Gunston Street, they documented the physical evidence, the position of Andria's body in the roadway, the firearm recovered from Breon McIntosh, and the bullet casings scattered across the pavement. Each piece contributed to a timeline of the final moments of Andria's life. The 911 call placed by Andria herself became a crucial piece of evidence. Her own voice, captured in those desperate moments, provided both a timestamp for the events and a harrowing, real-time account of the pursuit that preceded her death. Witness statements from construction workers and residents in the area helped authorities reconstruct what happened before police arrived. They described hearing an argument followed by gunshots, a sequence that matched the evidence being collected. The investigation revealed that Breon and Andria had engaged in a verbal argument that rapidly intensified. At some point during this escalation, Breon produced a handgun and fired multiple shots, causing Andria's fatal injuries. The proximity to their scheduled divorce hearing strongly suggested a motive rooted in control and the imminent formal end of their relationship. What made this case particularly significant from an investigative standpoint was the clear connection to domestic violence. As Wayne County Prosecutor Kim Worthy would later state, the alleged facts in this case represented an egregious example of what domestic violence looks like. Investigators were tasked with not only processing the immediate crime scene, but also examining the history between Andria and Breon. The court records describing their divorce proceedings as very bitter provided context for the escalation to violence. The timing, just hours before a scheduled hearing, pointed to premeditation rather than a spontaneous act of rage. The fact that Andria was a former sheriff's deputy and police officer added another layer to the investigation. Here was someone trained in threat assessment, someone familiar with the warning signs of violence, someone who understood the system, yet she still became a victim. This uncomfortable reality underscored the insidious nature of domestic violence and its ability to transcend professional knowledge or experience. As the investigation progressed, one detail stood out with painful clarity. Andria had done everything right according to conventional wisdom. She had initiated legal proceedings to leave the relationship. She had maintained her distance. She was following the established process. And yet, in the end, these actions could not protect her. This revelation would become central to how prosecutors would later frame the case, not just as an individual tragedy, but as a powerful illustration of the gaps in our systems designed to protect victims of domestic violence. Breon McIntosh, 35 years old at the time of the shooting, was Andria's estranged husband. Following his apprehension at the scene, he was taken into custody and formally charged with premeditated first-degree murder and felony firearm. On August 6, 2023, just 2 days after Andria's death, Breon was arraigned in the 36th District Court before Magistrate Malika Ramsey Heath. During this proceeding, he was remanded to jail, denied bond due to the severity of the charges and the circumstances of the crime. The prosecution, led by Wayne County Prosecutor Kim Worthy's office, moved swiftly to establish the serious nature of the case. The charges filed against Breon, premeditated first-degree murder and felony firearm, reflected the prosecution's view that this was not a crime of sudden passion, but a calculated act. The court scheduled a probable cause conference for August 4, 2023, followed by a preliminary examination set for August 21, 2023, both before Judge Kenneth King. These initial hearings represented the first steps in what would become a lengthy legal process. What distinguished this case from many other homicides was the clear connection to domestic violence and the timing in relation to the divorce proceedings. Prosecutor Worthy made this connection explicit in public statements, framing Andria's murder as emblematic of the dangers faced by those attempting to leave abusive relationships. The most dangerous time in the life of a domestic violence victim is when they are trying to leave the relationship, Worthy stated, providing context that transformed Andria's individual tragedy into a powerful illustration of a broader societal issue. The legal proceedings following these initial hearings have been protracted. Court records indicate that as of April 29, 2025, nearly 2 years after the crime, the case remained active in the Michigan Court of Appeals. On that date, an order was issued granting an extension to file transcripts until July 19, 2025, suggesting ongoing appellate activity in the case People of MI Breon McIntosh. This extended timeline highlights a reality familiar to victims' families. The pursuit of justice often involves years of court appearances, appeals, and painful revisiting of the tragedy. For Andria's 7 children and her extended family, each court date represents both a step toward resolution and a reopening of wounds still fresh. Beyond the criminal proceedings, a parallel legal battle emerged in early 2025. On January 31st of that year, United of Omaha Life Insurance Company initiated a civil action seeking a declaratory judgment regarding the eligibility of beneficiaries to receive death benefits from Andria's whole life insurance policy. As of March 11, 2025, court records indicate that the insurance company was still attempting to serve a defendant named Tanya M. Sims, suggesting complexities surrounding the financial aftermath of Andria's death. This civil case reveals a less visible but equally impactful consequence of homicide: the administrative and financial complications that survivors must navigate while still processing their grief. For Andria's family, these parallel legal processes mean that even as they await final resolution in the criminal case, they must simultaneously engage with civil proceedings that directly impact their financial future. This dual burden is one rarely highlighted in discussions of violent crime, but represents a significant aspect of its lasting impact. The prosecution's framing of the case and the charges filed suggest a strong focus on premeditation, a legal element that transforms an act of homicide into first-degree murder. The timing of the shooting, occurring just before a scheduled divorce hearing, provides compelling context for this characterization. As the criminal case continues to work its way through the appellate process, the full legal resolution remains pending. What is clear, however, is that the prosecution has consistently positioned this case as not merely an individual crime, but as a powerful example of the deadly potential of domestic violence, particularly during separation attempts. In the wake of Andria McIntosh's death, the ripple effects spread outward, touching her family, community, and even influencing advocacy efforts at the state level. Her family, while grappling with profound grief, made a conscious decision to focus on celebrating Andria's vibrant life rather than dwelling exclusively on the brutal circumstances of her death. Her daughter Sania and sister Kanish shared memories that painted a portrait of Andria as loving, open-hearted, and deeply connected to her family. They recalled how she loved swimming, particularly at Metro Beach, a simple joy that now stands as a bittersweet memory of better days. These personal recollections served as a powerful reminder that behind every statistic lies a full and complex human life, cut short by violence. Andria's professional background as a former sheriff's deputy and police officer added a layer of painful irony to her story. Her death highlighted an uncomfortable truth. Even those with training and knowledge of the system can become victims of domestic violence. This reality underscored the pervasive nature of such violence and its ability to affect individuals across all demographics and professions. Beyond personal remembrance, Andria's case quickly became a catalyst for advocacy. Organizations such as Moms Demand Action utilized her story to push Michigan lawmakers towards stronger gun safety measures, specifically advocating for legislation to prohibit convicted domestic abusers from possessing firearms. These groups highlighted the deadly correlation, noting that approximately 65% of women killed in domestic violence incidents die by gunshot. Andria's death, the 8th domestic violence homicide in Wayne County that year, provided a tragically perfect illustration of the statistics they cited. In January 2025, Andria's sister Kenesha Williams took a significant step in shaping her legacy by publishing Her Life, the Andria Sims McIntosh story. This book was described as a powerful call to break the silence, to find hope and healing, and to ensure no story like Andria's is ever forgotten. Through this publication, Williams transformed personal grief into a public call for change, ensuring her sister's story would serve as an enduring educational tool. The book also hinted at intergenerational patterns, mentioning cycles of pain that ripple through generations, and drawing parallels with her grandmother's own tragic fate. This suggestion of inherited trauma adds depth to understanding Andria's story, connecting individual tragedy to broader societal patterns that persist across generations. It raises questions about recognition, intervention, and the support systems necessary to break such cycles. For the broader community, Andria's death represented both a shocking tragedy and a sobering reminder. Her murder, occurring in broad daylight while actively seeking legal separation, highlighted the limitations of current systems designed to protect those attempting to leave dangerous relationships. As Wayne County Prosecutor Kim Worthy emphasized, the most dangerous time in the life of a domestic violence victim is when they are trying to leave the relationship. Andria's case stands as a powerful and tragic confirmation of this reality, one that advocates hope will inspire meaningful change in how society approaches domestic violence prevention and victim protection. Andria McIntosh's story is one of profound loss. A mother of 7, a former law enforcement officer, a woman actively seeking freedom from a troubled marriage. Her death on August 4, 2023, just hours before her scheduled divorce hearing, exemplifies the extreme danger faced by those attempting to leave abusive relationships. At True Crime Case Tapes, we believe these stories must be told not merely as sensational accounts of violence, but as meaningful examinations of the systems and circumstances that allow such tragedies to occur. Andria's case demonstrates that even when victims do everything right, pursuing legal remedies, maintaining distance, following established processes, the danger remains acute. The ongoing legal proceedings, still active nearly 2 years after her death, highlight the often lengthy journey toward justice that victims' families must endure. Meanwhile, parallel civil actions related to insurance benefits reveal the complex financial aftermath that compounds their grief. Despite these challenges, Andria's legacy continues to grow through family remembrance, her sister's published book, and advocacy efforts inspired by her case. Her story has become a powerful argument for policy reform, particularly regarding gun access for domestic abusers. If you found value in our examination of Andria's case, please consider supporting our work by subscribing to our channel and sharing this video. Your engagement helps us continue telling these important stories with the dignity and respect they deserve. For viewers personally affected by domestic violence, we want to emphasize that help is available. National hotlines provide confidential support 24/7, and local resources exist in most communities. Recognizing early signs and seeking assistance before situations escalate can save lives. Andria McIntosh's story compels us to confront the silence surrounding domestic violence, to strengthen support systems for victims, and to enact policies that prevent future lives from being tragically cut short. It is a testament to the enduring human spirit and a solemn reminder of the urgent work still needed to ensure safety and justice for all. From all of us at True Crime Case Tapes, thank you for joining us in remembering Andria, not just as a victim, but as a mother, sister, daughter, and woman whose life mattered. Until next time, stay safe and stay informed.